MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com. Expand your skills. Improve yourself. Get a free 10-day trial of all lynda.com has to offer at lynda.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, last year at Macworld, iWorld 20, let's see, that would have been 2013. Got it? No, 2014.
No, 2014.
2014.
Last
Got to do
one.
this right. We talked to Paul Kafasis of Rogue Amoeba about something that he was working on. He was hinting at a new version of Audio Hijack, and now we've got it. So now we've got Paul to tell us all about it. Paul, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, 10 months ago. Wow, it seems like yesterday.
Well, we should have another Macworld coming up next month, but we won't. So that's got to hold on to that one, I guess.
Yeah, I know. We're all looking for replacements and all. I think most of us are wearing a black armband about.
There you go. Yeah. You went to CES, right?
Yes, I went to CES.
Yeah. So it's not the same. I mean, it's not even close to the same. It's a very different show, and it's certainly not a replacement for a Mac-centric show or an Apple-centric show like that was. But I know a lot of the tech people who were at CES at least.
Yeah, I think we're all trying to fill that void, and it's just. I mean, it's okay. It's a good show, but you're right. It's just not the same.
Right.
So, but this is not a wake for Macworld. This
there you
is
go, yeah.
We're here to talk about Audio Hijack. And note, folks, that I'm not saying Audio Hijack Pro. I'm trying to break myself of that because this is just Audio Hijack. Paul, take it away. Tell us about it.
All right. Well, hopefully, we've talked about the product a few times, but basically a tool for recording audio on your Mac. We've had an Audio Hijack product for 13 years now, just short of 13 years, 12 and a half years. And we've had a couple iterations, Audio Hijack, and then, as you mentioned, Audio Hijack Pro. And Audio Hijack Pro was around for a little over a decade. And Audio Hijack Pro 2 was the version that we had for a long time. It got a lot of updates, but it was always the same version number and, 2, 2.1, 2.5. And for a couple of years, we'd been working on the new version, which was going to be version 3, which is version 3. And so that's what we released, what's today, February 2nd? So 2 weeks ago tomorrow, we put out Audio Hijack 3. And as you mentioned, we dropped the Pro suffix on there in order to simplify and make it clear that this was a tool that was for anyone who needed to do any sort of recording on their Mac. And that's actually one of the big questions we've gotten from a lot of people. And the short answer is just that the Pro suffix on there was always sort of a misnomer. It was never supposed to be a professional tool. It was just supposed to connote that it was higher end or had more features, plus almost. It was the plus version of it, really. And so that worked pretty well, but I think at least some number of people were confused by the fact that it had the word Pro at the end, and they thought, oh, that's not for me. That's for people working in a studio or musicians or things like that. And so we dropped the Pro suffix, and now it's just back to its simple Audio Hijack name.
One thing about Audio Hijack Pro is it may not have been intended for pros, but you could do a lot of very powerful stuff with it. But it required a learning curve, and it required a bit of expertise. And some of that I developed, some of that I was never quite able to get probably everything out of the program I could. Have you been able to simplify some of that and still keep the same functionality?
I think we absolutely have. I mean, that was, without a doubt, that was the purpose of this new version. It's a complete redesign, and if you've used the old product and you take a look at the new product, you'll see that it's a very different UI, a very different interface. But the basics of it are the same in terms of capturing audio from one source or multiple sources, from a microphone, from applications, from your entire system, and recording that to a file. That's sort of the basic idea of using Audio Hijack. But previously with Audio Hijack Pro, you set that up in, just setting that much up took 3 different tabs. And then if you wanted to do anything more on top of that in terms of adding audio effects or doing anything a little more powerful, that was a 4th tab and a whole bunch of extra controls. And with Audio Hijack, we simplified things down into one screen that has what we call a pipeline interface. So basically there's blocks, and each block does something with audio, and audio flows from block to block in a fairly obvious visual pipeline. So you create a pipeline of one block that is your input. So you'd say, if you want to record from Skype, you'd set Skype as your input. And then your next block would be a recording block. And with that, you could just record right from Skype, and you can see the audio flow from Skype into the recording and save to an MP3. And then if you want a little bit more power out of it, you can add an output so you can hear the audio as you're recording, or you can add some audio effects blocks and you can see the audio pass from one block to the next. So it's basically just a way to visualize exactly what's going to happen when you're using the software. And I think it's just from the feedback we've gotten, it's clearly a lot more intuitive for people. And that's exactly what we were trying to do. So you mentioned all the power that Audio Hijack Pro had, and just about all of that is still present and still possible. I think it's just a lot easier to use now.
We should give us some use cases for this. I mean, they're obvious to you, and of course they're obvious to me, but for a lot of folks they may not be. They may have had a little bit of a hint there in your description, but let's walk through a couple use cases before we take a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's another thing we implemented in the new version was what we call templates. So there's 10 templates that are designed for the most common use cases. And those are things like recording Skype is a big one, recording VoIP, any sort of FaceTime, Skype, any sort of online calling, as well as recording web audio. So recording audio from web streams on Safari or Chrome, pulling content from YouTube if you want to make a copy of that. Recording, I'm trying to think what some of the other templates are. I should take a quick look. Let's see. There we go. So I'm looking at the templates right now. We've got application audio, which is just recording from any application. So anything that's playing on your Mac, if you want to record audio from a game or from any music software, anything like that. DVD audio, that's actually an interesting one. People want to pull music off of concert DVDs often. You buy a concert DVD, and then when you want to play the music off of it, you either need a DVD player or you need to get that off somehow. And so Audio Hijack lets you pull that in. Podcast recording, that's a big one. In addition to just recording VoIP, in-person, in-studio podcasts, when you've got a setup with multiple microphones. So you've got 2 or 3 microphones, and you want to apply some effects to that. So that's another one of the templates that we've got. But it's not something, like you said, there's a whole lot of different use cases for it, and we've sort of hinted at some of them. It's not something where there's one use case and this is obviously what you use it for. It's something where if you want to do something with audio on your Mac, if you want to record audio on your Mac, this Audio Hijack will almost certainly let you do it. And that fills a lot of different smaller niche markets of people who are trying to do different things with audio.
Of course, Rogue Amoeba is so well known for their audio products, and that's what makes me excited about this, because not only are you known for your audio products, you're known for how useful, how high quality they are, and they just work. And it was interesting. Now, I honestly would not have thought. I mean, I'm sure if I sat down, it wouldn't take me long to figure out how to get the audio off of a DVD. I'd have to do some ripping and some extracting, but that's just one nice little use case that you just pop that in and go, especially if you have a lot of live DVDs that you want the music off of.
Yeah, that's one that it's not one that necessarily a whole lot of people are looking to do, but it's one that we hear from people and they say, hey, I've got this concert DVD, Pink Floyd or whatever, and they want to get that music onto their iPhone. And, they have all the rights to it. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And with this, it enables you to do that. So it's a whole lot of sort of, small use cases that fill a need for a small number of people. But when you add that up, it turns into a pretty big set of users that we have.
This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. It's February. What have you done for yourself this year? September will be here before you know it, and then December, and then where will you be? Time to invest in yourself by learning something new at lynda.com. Millions of people all over the world use lynda.com to learn things like visual design, business, and web development. To get trained on major productivity apps like Excel, WordPress, and Photoshop. To get an edge. And that means they're all getting ahead of you. We can't have that, can we? That's why you need to go to lynda.com/MacVoices right now and sign up for a 10-day free trial. That's 10 solid days of access to anything lynda.com has to offer. Advance your financial goals. Get started with a new hobby. Add skills to your resume for a new job. You can do all that and more with lynda.com. With lynda.com, you can watch and learn where you want, when you want, on your Mac, iPhone, or iPad. So start something on your lunch hour on your iPhone and finish it that night on your iPad or Mac. Some of lynda.com's newest and most popular courses include iOS 8, iPhone and iPad Essential Training, setting up your mobile office to work from anywhere, speeding up and maintaining your Mac, Swift Essential Training, and the Code Clinic, a different kind of series where each month lynda.com issues a code challenge and different authors share their solutions using a variety of different programming languages. Yeah, a little geeky, but it's a great way to learn. I've enjoyed and benefited from lynda.com courses on Final Cut Pro, video production tips and techniques, and a number of web software courses. And there's so much more I want to get to. The time has come. Invest in yourself and sign up for a free 10-day trial by visiting lynda.com/MacVoices. Go ahead. I challenge you to learn something new in 2015. And when you do, I want to know about it. Email me at chuck@macvoices.com and tell me what you learned. I'm always looking for another course to add to my already long list. Again, lynda.com/MacVoices for a free, full, 10-day unrestricted trial. Do it now. Thanks to lynda.com for their support of MacVoices. You brought up an interesting thing that I just want to touch on. Are there any issues here that you have shied away from or had to avoid completely when it comes to rights and permissions and ownership and all that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's one that we've gotten for a decade now. I feel like initially when we came out with this tool, we heard it a lot more that said, you can do that, you're allowed to do that. And the response that we always gave was, you're allowed to do anything as long as it's not prohibited. I mean, that's the foundation of America, really, is that everything is legal except the things that aren't. It's not the reverse, that you need to check for legality of something, and if there's no word on it, then it's not legal. So it was always a little sort of interesting to me that was the reaction that people had. In general, everything that you're doing with this software is, straight up legal. If you can hear something, you can record it. That's allowed. There are, court cases that uphold that principle. In terms of, it's called time shifting, which is making a recording that you can listen to later, and place shifting, which is making a recording of something that you can listen to in one place and taking it to another place. So that would be DVD audio. If you own a DVD and you record it to play on your iPhone, that would be place shifting. And there was a case in, I think it was 1998. And it was Rio, who was at the time one of the first MP3 player manufacturers, hardware MP3 players. And they had a lawsuit, and they won. And I forget if I think it was a district court that upheld it. I don't think that one made it to the Supreme Court. But basically, these rulings have been upheld by the courts, and they said, you're allowed to do this. You have the rights to this music, and you can listen to it elsewhere if you've already purchased it somewhere. So it's not something where our tool is enabling you to do anything that is illegal. The tool certainly has never been designed to enable you to do anything illegal. As far as shying away from something, I don't think there's anything in the design that we said, we don't want to do that because it enables someone to steal music or something like that. It was never really anything that we were focused on. We just said, here's a tool that lets you record audio, and there's a huge number of legitimate uses for this. And, there are ways to use it that you could be stealing content, but that's not what it's designed for. And if you use the software at all, it's very clear that that's not what we created it to do. So it's not something that we think about too much anymore, just when we get the odd question from a user. Or I think if anything, the name sounds, when people hear the name, that's sort of where they think, oh, wait a minute, that sounds a little, criminal's not the right word, but it sounds a little gray area. And I think that's sort of a little bit of a double-edged sword, because it's a good name in that it sort of describes exactly what's happening. So I think it works pretty well. But we get a few people who think, oh, it must be up to something that I shouldn't be doing.
It seems like it's a question that has to be asked now about just about anything that records anything. What are your rights, and what can you do with it, and are you crossing that line? And of course, there's the practical versus the absolutely cutting edge legal thing, where something might not be legal, but a lot of people do it, and we're not here to debate that, so that's not the point.
No, but and you're absolutely right. But this is something where there are multiple court cases upholding everything that this has done for a decade or two, in terms of enabling you to have an MP3 player, enabling you to have a TiVo. The lawsuits that or the court cases that upheld those are actually what we're able to base our legal protections on too. So it's pretty rock solid. But yeah, it's definitely something that nowadays it does seem like something you need to think about.
Yeah. Paul, what kind of hardware is required to run the new Audio Hijack?
You need a Mac, and you need OS 10.9 and up. So 10.9 or 10.10, what's that, Mavericks and Yosemite. Yeah. But that's really about it.
Okay, so you know, I mean, well, that pretty much says it. Anything that'll run those will
Yeah,
will
absolutely.
perform for you.
It's not terribly resource intensive. I mean, when you're doing something with it, and especially if you throw a lot of effects at it, you'll use some CPU, but it's not anything where you need a high end machine or anything. I run it daily on a MacBook Air, the lowest end possible, from a 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years ago. So it's certainly not anything that requires a high end machine.
Great. Let's take a look at it. See a little bit of all this work you've been doing.
Yeah, so I mentioned the template chooser earlier, and this is sort of where you get started with Audio Hijack. When you hit new session, this will pull up and you can create a blank session that is just empty, which doesn't have anything in it. Or if we close that and we start a new session, then these are the templates that'll let you do things. So there's already sort of built-in pipelines that will help you get set up. So I'll look at the voice chat one. And this will basically, if I run it, which I'm not going to do right now because we're actually using Skype, but this would pull audio from Skype, send it to a recorder, and then it would place your remote audio on both channels so that you could hear it. And you'd want to set this to your headphones so that you didn't have a feedback loop going. But basically, this is a predefined setup. And then if you want to tweak this, you can say, you know, actually, I want to record to Apple lossless, or I want to throw in some effects. So I want to throw in a 10-band equalizer before I record it, or actually more likely would be something like, I got a whole bunch of plugins on here, something like the dynamics processor, which will shrink down the range of what you're hearing, which is nice. So that's a predefined setup that then you can tweak. But what I usually do is I just use a blank session, and then I can say, you know, what do I want to do today? I want to record from some applications. I'm going to record from Google Chrome. I want to pull something off the web. And I also want to do a voiceover on it. So I'm going to bring a microphone in too, and that's this microphone. And, you know, I want to send it to a recorder. I'm going to record to MP3, say, or I can, again, change that to whatever I like. And now if I hit record right now, I won't hear the audio. So if I just want to record something and I don't need to hear it, then I can just hit record. But if I want to record and also be able to hear it, then I also need to add an output so that it goes to my speakers. And actually, I don't want to do this because it'll create another feedback loop. But if we want to record something from Google Chrome and we just hit record, now any audio that's played in Google Chrome will come through Audio Hijack Pro. So if I just pull something up on YouTube, say, there's a good one. And of course, we'll start with an ad, but we can see the audio is now flowing through. And flowing through Audio Hijack Pro flowing through Audio Hijack and got recorded. So it's something where it's really simple to get set up with. If you start with one of the templates, you can look at these and see if it meets the need that you're trying to accomplish, or you can just start with a blank session and then build your own session and get it set up exactly how you want. It's something that it's really easy to experiment with, and you know, drag some sources in, drag some outputs in, drag some effects in to adjust things, tweak them, and get exactly what you're looking for.
I love the interface. I love it's so simplified compared to what we were using before. Talk about the effects for a second. Where do they come from? Are they built into Audio Hijack Pro, or are they built into the operating system?
It's both, yeah. So it's so if you look, this is our library over here. So over here we've got the types of blocks that we offer. So you've got your sources, that's the things that provide audio. You've got outputs, that's where you're going to send audio. So your sources are things like an application or an input device like a microphone. Your outputs are your speakers or a recorder. So if you're going to save it to a file, that's usually what people are doing, but not always. And then we've also got built-in effects, which are effects that we created and are included in the software. We've got audio unit effects, which are effects that are part of Mac OS X itself. And then there's also third-party audio unit effects that you can bring in. And then we've got a couple meters. So if you want to throw some meters up in the menu bar or see them right in line, you can see the audio moving in addition to what you see in the pipeline. So the effects that we have are the built-in effects that we offer are some pretty simple ones, like a 10-band equalizer. You can do balance, bass, and treble. These are actually new in Audio Hijack 3, declick, dehum, and denoise. These are designed to remove certain types of audio noise that you get. So when you're importing vinyl records, say, you get some noise that the denoise plugin will help you remove. And sometimes you get clicks in audio that are regular machine clicks, and this plugin will help you remove those as well. Looking at what else we've even got. So time shift is a really cool one that some people have found some interesting uses for. So if you're pulling audio in from some application, let's just say from Chrome again, and you're sending it out to an output device, with the time shift plugin, you can pause the audio and it'll stop playing the audio, and you can actually jump back as well. So if you set it back 10 seconds, everything will be on a 10-second delay, or if you pause it, it'll pause that audio, and then when you unpause it, it'll play the audio out. But so it basically puts a big pause button on your computer's audio output. And so the cool use that I saw recently was a couple of people were transcribing the Apple quarterly, the Apple stock quarterly report, and they were transcribing Tim Cook's comments. And so they were transcribing, and they would type, and they would pause the audio, and then they would type some more, and then they would unpause and hear a little bit and type it, and they could jump back if they missed something. So it was a really cool way to be able to capture audio and put it on hold for a little bit. So that's the built-in effects that we've got. There's some more in there, but easy to explore. And then audio unit effects. So right up here, I've got some third-party audio unit effects that I've got installed that I'm testing with. But all these down here that start with AU are Apple audio unit effects, and they're built into Mac OS X. And there's some pretty powerful ones. Like this one always cracks me up. This is Apple's built-in equalizer, and it's got 31 bands here. You can drop it down to a 10-band EQ, which is a little easier to deal with. But this is a little complex. But users who know what they're doing are able to make good use of it, and you can actually set little waveforms and things like that. So this is something that Apple bundles with the OS, but is not really accessible in too many places. I think GarageBand uses them. There's a few other audio apps that use them, but it's not something that's terribly easy to discover or terribly easy to find unless you have an audio application. So this provides that power in a way that's fairly simple and lets you apply it to things like application audio or your microphone if you want to. So those are the blocks that it's actually a big list that is included with the OS, and then we've got a few of our own. I think there's about, I'd have to look at the exact number. It's over a couple dozen, 20 or 30 effects that you can use to adjust the audio. And it's something that for most people, they just want to record. They say, pull from Chrome, pull from Safari, pull from wherever, send it to a file, and send it to my speaker so I can hear it while I'm recording it. But if you want to do something that's more powerful, these blocks are there to help you do it.
Paul, is this something I could use to post-process, let's just say the audio from this interview? Given that I will be able to split it off from the video, so I will have an AIFF file, excuse me. Can I use Audio Hijack then to process this and take advantage of some of the filters and the effects?
You can. It's definitely not designed for that because Audio Hijack works in real time. So when the audio plays through Audio Hijack, it will process the audio and it'll add these effects if you want, but it'll do it only in real time. It won't do it faster than real time. So if you said, I want to apply a compressor to this to reduce the range, you'd have to play the entire file. So if we've got, a half hour or 45-minute interview, you'd have to play that all and have it run through Audio Hijack. Now, some people definitely do that. But like I said, it's not really designed for it because that real-time requirement is a little onerous if you're looking to process a whole lot of audio. If you're looking to process just a little bit of audio, a few minutes or something, then it works pretty well for that. And it's a fairly simple way of doing it. You just play that audio in some application, really any application, and set that as your source. So you can play it in QuickTime Player and set that as your source and then apply the effects to it. And then the recording that you make will have those effects applied to it. So it's definitely something that you can post-process, but it's much more for doing real-time adjustments. So if you're doing a live show online and you're streaming it, you'd apply some of these effects, and then listeners would hear those effects. And you might also make a recording that has those effects already applied to it.
Okay, thank you. You just went to my next question. I love this. What I was seeing there in the output devices, it looked like I had a recorder and I had speakers. And that was pretty much it. But you're saying I could use this to post-process, excuse me, scratch that. You're saying I could process the, audio that I'm streaming out live to the web?
Yeah, so we have a product called Nicecast, and it lets you broadcast an MP3 stream out to the web. And a whole lot of podcasters use that to do a live stream at the same time they're recording a podcast. And so if you used Audio Hijack, you could do a whole lot of processing with these effects. And with that, you'd create a stream of audio that Nicecast could then pick up. So if you set Audio Hijack as your source in Nicecast And in Audio Hijack, your sources were a bunch of microphones. You'd basically have a two-step process. Audio would come from your microphones through Audio Hijack, have some adjustments made, and then it would then be passed on to Nicecast, which would then broadcast it out. So that would be a way that a lot of people are already using to sort of apply these effects and get it out there in live streaming.
How many mics can Audio Hijack handle at this point?
How many mics you got? I mean, it's not something where there's a hard limit. Let's see. I think actually the biggest limit is the what the interface will allow you to do in terms of connecting devices. So if I'm going to put, these will all be the same mic, but
sure,
I'm testing it right now, and if we put this here, it's gonna send 4 different mics to that output if we want to record to that. Actually, what we often see though is people doing multiple recordings at once. So if you've got, say, a podcast of 4 people, and you want to have an individual file for each user, you could say, this is mic 4, 3, 2, 1, and each mic can be sent to a different recorder. And when you hit record, it'll save that file. It'll save 4 different files, and they'll all be in sync. So you'd then get basically a track for each individual microphone, which for a lot of podcasters that are doing sort of a studio setup is really nice, because then you can throw all those tracks into GarageBand or into a multi-track editor, and you've got them all lined up, and they're all in sync immediately, because when you hit this big red record button, it starts all 4 of those recorders, and you get files that are exactly in sync instead of needing to deal with syncing them up after the fact.
This seems like something you would want to play with it, but there's a lot of power here. I'm thinking of all kinds of scenarios, and I'm not sure I can come up with one that really you haven't demonstrated a way to handle.
Hopefully that's the case. I mean, it's something where we did try to put a lot of power in here, even though it's hopefully a fairly simple interface to understand. When you experiment with it, you can see, oh, hey, I can do this. I can, send to multiple recorders. Or I'm trying to think of what some of the other things that people discovered that they could do. Some people were recording capturing from the same application 2 separate times, and they'd send to a recorder, and then they would also apply some audio effects and send it on to another application. So it was just interesting to see all the things that people have done with it in just a couple of weeks of using it. It's definitely something where you can experiment with it a lot, and you can experiment with it live as you're recording, or obviously if you have something that you need, you don't necessarily want to do that. But if you're sort of messing around with it, you can add and remove blocks while you're recording and see the difference and hear the difference, really. So it's definitely something where you can start out with something really simple, and the templates are generally fairly simple, but you can then, so this is the simplest template we have, really. Just record from iTunes, save it to an MP3, and then send to your speakers. But then you can add all sorts of effects and all sorts of different chains to your pipeline and really get some pretty powerful setups.
You did it to me again. You're reading ahead. You can send from one application to another application?
Well, so that's something that requires some additional software. So if you have, there's a couple tools out there that will let you pipe audio from one app to another.
Okay.
Audio Hijack is definitely designed just to pull audio in and then send it to a file. Nicecast was the example I said earlier, which can pull from Audio Hijack because that also has our audio capture. But as far as the outputs go, no, it's really just sending to a file or sending to speakers. So there's some software out there. There's a tool called Soundflower, which will let you create a virtual audio device. And this is getting a little more technical, so definitely some of your more technical listeners have probably heard of Soundflower, maybe even using it. But if you have Soundflower installed, you can send audio to Soundflower, and then in another application, you can set that as your input device and pull the audio in. So applications that will take an audio input can basically take audio from Audio Hijack using something like Soundflower. But Audio Hijack alone is not set to do that. It's something that is designed to send audio either to your speakers or to a file for recording.
And you're right. That's a very specialized use case. I can think of a couple ways, but that's not for the people that this audience that this is really designed for.
Yeah, and it's something that it works for that process if you need it to, but it's like you said, it's not designed to do that. And if you want to make it do that, you can. But our focus was much more on the sort of simpler. I want to record from X, or I want to add some effects to Y, and to this application or that application, and that's sort of the bread and butter of what this application does, what Audio Hijack does.
Okay.
So there was one other thing that I haven't gotten to demo on video before. I've talked about it a couple times, but it's something that I'm actually pretty proud of as far as the design of the software goes, and hopefully people find it and can make good use of it. And that's we created what we call popovers. It's actually a term from the iPad, but the Mac has them now as well. And basically, when you click something, instead of opening a new window, this equalizer opens in what's called a popover, and it's connected to this block, and you can see one popover from here, or you can switch blocks. But what's really cool is that it sort of keeps the information off your screen if you don't need it. So once you have this set, if you just say, oh, I want to increase the volume, so I'm using a loudness preset. Now the equalizer is doing that. You don't need to see that on screen. But what's really nice about the popovers is a couple little hidden features that we have. And that's that you can tear this popover off. So now I can open another popover and I can see both these on screen at the same time. And if I need to, I can adjust this while this is all still open. And then the second thing that you can do that's really cool that I really like is you can pin this. So if this is not pinned, when I switch applications, it disappears. But when it's pinned, when I switch applications, it actually stays on top. And what's really great about that is that it enables you to have these controls anywhere on your system. So if you're doing something in the background with Audio Hijack, but you want to have one control in front of you, this pinning enables you to have that floating basically anywhere on the screen that you want it to, and enables you to access that control without needing to jump back into Audio Hijack itself. So it's something that we've seen definitely a small percentage of our users have needed, but they've emailed us and said, hey, I need to get these controls in another application. I'm using something else and I just need to tweak it a little bit with Audio Hijack, but I don't want to have that in front of me. And when we show them how to do this, they're just blown away. And it's like I said, it's something that we're pretty proud of, and it's something that I think is a pretty elegant solution for a problem that some people will have.
That's very cool. That really is. It's one of those nice little touches.
Exactly. It's something that this application, you mentioned, we talked about it about 10 months ago, and we've been working on it for several years before that. And ultimately, people shouldn't have to care about that. They should just have a piece of software in front of them that works and does what they need it to. But it's something that takes a long time, and hopefully they don't notice that it took a long time just because it works well. But if you stop and think about it, you say, yeah, maybe that did take a while, and sure enough, it did.
I applaud you for the ability to simplify the interface or make it as complex as you want. And now this is just another level of complexity. You give me a lot more control if I want it, but you don't force it on me like some programs with palettes flying everywhere. I can pull up what I need.
Exactly. And I think that's something that we learned from Audio Hijack Pro, which was it had a whole lot of power, but it wasn't super easy to just get a simple bird's eye view of what you were doing. And I think that's really something that we aim to do with this, and I think hopefully succeeded with. But like you said, if you do want to add some power to it, you can pull up the things that you need to.
Paul, again, this is one of those programs that Rogue Amoeba comes out with that makes me want to go and just play and not have to worry about anything, breaking anything or doing something I shouldn't. And it's a whole heck of a lot easier than dragging around a bunch of patch cords trying to stick them in things.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we've said it a few times, but it really is something you can play with and experiment with, and I think more than any of our previous applications, really. But it's definitely something that's got a lot of power in there, but if you play around, you can find a whole lot of different ways to use it.
What kind of pricing are we talking about? That's the first big question.
Yeah, so Audio Hijack 3 is $49, but we've got a whole lot of, hopefully, users who had purchased previous versions, and we did something, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone else do this. I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but we extended the upgrade pricing that we have to anyone who has ever purchased an Audio Hijack product. So all the way back to Audio Hijack 1, which was in 2002. You can upgrade from there. We just had somebody who upgraded from January 1st, 2003. That's the earliest upgrade that I've seen so far. And that's an upgrade of $25 right now. So upgrade from any version of Audio Hijack or Audio Hijack Pro for $25, or if you're a new user, it's $49.
Great. We seem to always get to this point with you about discussing the App Store and how your software is being distributed. So I'll let you go down that path as much as you want. Is it available in the App Store, and any supplementary comments?
Yeah. We've talked about this a few times. The App Store has not been terribly great for us. Certainly not on iOS, and on the Mac side, we've got a couple applications that are in there, but are nothing that has been a major product for us there. And Audio Hijack is indeed not in the App Store. It's something you need to buy direct from us at rogueamoeba.com. You can download a free trial there, which you can't do from the App Store, which is nice. It's nice to be able to get the trial, I think. but it's something that really can't be in the App Store. This is software that's doing things that the App Store's restrictions simply don't allow for. And I think on the Mac side, that's not that big a deal. Because on the Mac side, you have the option to distribute your software independently, which we've been doing, which software developers have been doing for 30 years now. Because you have the option to distribute outside the store, the fact that we're not able to get in the store is not that big a deal. We have more of a sort of psychological or political issue with the iOS App Store, where that's the only means of distributing software. But on the Mac side, if we could be in the App Store, it'd be a different discussion, and we'd certainly be interested in doing that. But because of the restrictions that Apple has in place right now against software that's not fully sandboxed, software that's doing things like capturing audio the way we are, it's simply impossible to have the software in there. And I think for the most part, that hasn't been too big a deal, because most people, or at least plenty of people, know that you can get software from outside the Mac App Store, and that there's a lot of great software that's not in the Mac App Store. And recently, in the past 6 or 12 months, we've seen some pretty big name applications leave the Mac App Store, due in part to some of the restrictions that Apple has in place. And they're still available for purchase, but they're not in the App Store anymore. And I think that's sort of interesting. I mean, like you said, I can talk about this as much or as little as we want, but I think it's interesting to see that some apps like BB Edit and Panic's Coda were in the App Store and no longer are. And it's due to some of Apple's restrictions and some of their policies, just in terms of taking 30% and the financial hit that you take from a sale there. And the App Store on the Mac is certainly useful, and plenty of people are using it, but it's also something where I don't think I hope that it doesn't become the only source of software, because clearly there's plenty of software out there that doesn't fit with Apple's model. And if Apple gets more permissive, that would be nice, but it's not not anything that we're relying on, because we're able to sell direct to customers ourselves.
Yeah, my feelings on this, I have to admit, have gone up and down the scale quite a bit. I think the App Store is great for what it is, and I think it gives a lot of people a very safe place to go and get applications, the classic for the rest of us. For the people that know what they're doing and want the more powerful tools or want the more specialized tools, you're right. You can go buy them direct, install them, take that much risk that is associated with it, and that risk is not usually security or privacy or anything like that. It has more to do with what you're doing to your system, and how you could mess it up if you don't know what you're doing.
Right, and it's something where the stuff that's in the App Store is basically incapable of doing anything that will cause problems on your system. But if you look at software from a big name company, Panic, Barebones, us, I think, that's not in the App Store, it's still very well vetted, because there's thousands upon thousands of users using it. And it's like you said, it's something where I think beginners can go and they say, oh, I need an app. Let me look in the App Store. Let me see what I can find. And that's a nice place to start. But I think as you get a little more experience, you're going to find that you want things that aren't there. And they probably do exist. You just need to go find them on the web.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, just kind of live and let live. Everybody makes their own choices, and hopefully it markets it appropriately, and hopefully we can shed the light on some of the apps that aren't necessarily in the App Store. That's kind of why we're here. What's next? Should I ask what's next? Or I mean, I know this just came out, so... Exactly.
That's the thing, is this has been out for 13 days, and like I said, it took several years and damn near killed me. But we do actually have... We've got some updates to Airfoil on the Mac and on Windows coming. That's our tool for sending audio to AirPlay devices. So Airport Express, Apple TV, and then all manner of third-party AirPlay devices. So we've got some big updates for both those applications that are coming probably in 2015, but we'll see. Those are still in the development stages. And we've got a new product that we're kicking around right now. I'm not going to say any more than that, but maybe I'll come back and hopefully, I'd say again, sometime in 2015, and that'll be something to talk about as well. So we've definitely got new products, updates, and then actually Audio Hijack, we've gotten, I really should say, we've gotten plenty of feedback on the new version, and it's certainly not by any means a done deal. It's not something where we said, this is it, we're done, and take it as it is. It's something where if you're purchasing, you should certainly expect it to be the way that it is, but we're always adding new features to it, always improving things, and definitely have a lot more work that we want to do there. I think by definition, any software release is pretty much unfinished. And if you ever want to ship a product, you need to ship less than what you're hoping to do. And eventually, hopefully, you catch up to close to what you wanted to do. But I mean, even if you think about the first iPhone didn't have copy and paste. And that's just ridiculous to me. And you use your phone now and you think, how is that possible? But Apple wanted to ship a product and they needed to get it out there. And to get it out there, you need to say, we need to sacrifice some things up front, and we'll add those eventually. And that's exactly what they did. And that's what we've always done and we'll continue to do. So there's certainly plenty of things in Audio Hijack as well that we have not yet done or need to do in the future.
I feel somewhat better now, just because now it's 10 months later. We don't have Macworld, but I've just gotten a product tease. So life,
there you go.
Life
yeah,
is good. Life
Absolutely.
is good. RogueAmoeba.com, of course, to go and download the trial. And I did want to touch on the trial for just a second. What kind of restrictions are in the trial?
So all of our software has pretty much the same restriction, which is that after a certain amount of time, in Audio Hijack's case, it's 10 minutes of use per launch, you'll have noise overlaid on your audio. So basically, if you're trying to make a recording and it's longer than 10 minutes, you'll need to purchase the software. But if you just want to experiment and make sure that it does what you need to, all the functionality is working, all the functionality is there. Nothing will unlock when you purchase the software. We want to make sure that people can use it exactly as it is. So I sort of liken it to a test drive that you can take over and over again. If you go to the dealer, they'll let you drive around for a couple miles and then that's it. This, you can go back to that dealer every time you want to and say, does this really do what I need it to? But if you want to go on a road trip, you're going to need to buy the car. And that's really the same thing we try and do with our trials, is give you access to all the functionality. But if you actually need to use it for something, that's when you need to purchase it.
And I don't think I can go with your analogy for this question, but if I use the test drive part of it and record something, is that noise hard encoded? So I can't unlock it and get rid of the noise.
No, because if you could, then the limitation would not be that useful, because someone could make a tool that would let you remove that noise. Right. It's something where we're very clear about it up front. We make before the recording starts, we make it clear that you're in trial mode, and then when you hit that, when you have the noise added, it's the UI, the interface makes it very clear what's happening. So we probably about maybe once every 6 months, we get somebody that emails us and says, "Oh, I made a recording with the trial and I need to remove the noise," and we just have to say, "Sorry, we really tried to make this really clear that you're not going to be able to do that." So yeah, definitely, if you're making an important recording, make sure you purchase the software first.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think it's a legitimate question. I know there's some utilities out there, and I think they're more video, frankly, than audio, that do give you that capability, but
to remove
the watermark or whatever. Yep. And that's not the way you should be doing it. But you're right. Somebody hits the button, thinks, "Oh yeah," and then not realize that they've gone past 10 minutes, and then they're
right. So yeah, we it goes bright red when it happens. We pop a little dialogue, so you shouldn't be able to miss that it's about to happen. So it's definitely been a fairly good system for us. We've used this system for about 10 or 11 years now, as far as this being our trial method. And people are, like I said, people are able to try the software, try every feature of it. But if they need to use it for their day-to-day use, then they need to purchase it, which is fair on both ends, I think.
I think it's very fair. And it's a very reasonable price for such a powerful utility that undoubtedly will get more capabilities as it goes along, just like the original Audio Hijack Pro did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Paul, it's great to see you. I'm sorry we won't see you in San Francisco, since none of us will be in San Francisco. But,
that's right.
Who knows where we might catch up with each other next time.
Absolutely. Hope to see you again soon, Chuck.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Folks, we'll have links in the show notes to everything, obviously to Rogue Amoeba and where you can get your own Audio Hijack, and have some fun with it. Let us know what you're doing with it. You can email me at chuck@macvoices.com. I always like to know what people are doing with this stuff, because maybe you're doing something I'd like to do and haven't thought of yet. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by Cashfly at cashfly.com. So we're doing an interview with Paul Kafasis and his amaryllis.
There you go. Exactly. I can move it. I don't know. I mean, I was making fun of your clutter. I got one plant and you're giving me crap. So.